Hello and welcome back everyone, we Weeb Online, and today I'm gonna continue the story What If Kid Naruto Became the Strongest Anbu, Part 4. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
A mighty sage from the mysterious realm of Mount Mayaboku. At the sight of his perfect vision, his enemies shake in fear, all children rejoice, and all women squeal. Here is Jiraiya, the all-powerful Toad Sage. Naruto had heard many stories about his godfather. His Jai-chan had often talked about his many victories in 2 world wars, and Kakaniai had praised the Sanin's contribution to the Yondame's strength and success. However, when Naruto saw his godfather now, wild and out of control, posing like a kabuki actor on top of an armored toad, he knew Jiraiya-sama was way cooler than he thought. The boy was nervous about finally meeting his godfather, a man who had been in his life since he was born but whom he had never met. Every other month or so, and always on his birthday, gifts would find their way to Naruto in the mouth of a toad. The boy had grown used to puffs of smoke revealing toads in his room and had come to look forward to them. Still, Naruto had often wondered what Jiraiya would be like, since he had never met him in person. He had heard so many stories about him that he thought he would be a war-torn old hero, maybe stoic and strict like Commander Ryu. He was happy to find out that his godfather was funny, cool, and full of life. "I see stunned silence," yelled the big man, who stood taller than everyone else on his toad. "Hi, Jiraiya. How many times do I have to tell you? Don't break in through my window and don't call your toad inside," yelled the Sandame as he glared at his student. "Ma, calm down, sensei," Jiraiya said as his toad disappeared in a puff of smoke. "What's one window for my entrance?" He smiled as he looked down at Naruto and walked quickly toward him. "This is the first time I've met my godson in person. It's nice to finally meet you, Naruto," he said as he knelt in front of the boy, who was still a head taller than him. Naruto looked at the man for a moment and then bowed. "Nice to meet you, too," he said, "Jiraiya-sama." The Sanin's smile turned into a small smile. "You really are like Minato," he said softly. "You look almost exactly like him." His smile came back, and he put a warm hand on Naruto's head and ruffled his hair. "This haircut, too. If someone knew your father, they would know you right away." He laughed. "I know your mother would be mad at your father. Clearly, his genes have been too strong in you." Naruto smiled slightly and said, "Yeah, I hear that a lot. Maybe on the outside." "Yes," the Hokage said with a smile. "But Naruto has a lot of Uzumaki blood in him. He takes after his mother when it comes to Fuinjutsu." "You sure? So you're interested in seals, huh?" asked the Sanin with a smile. "I thought you would like it. Both of your parents were crazy about it." Again, he ruffled the boy's hair and asked, "Did you finish the books I sent you? They were a little hard to understand, but I'm sure you could have done it." Naruto nodded and said, "Those were just the beginning books. Once you know more about seals, I can start you off on the more difficult stuff." "Jiraiya," the Sandame said with a smile, "I'm afraid Naruto here is already far beyond the introductory volumes." The Sanin raised an eyebrow at his sensei before looking back at his godson. "He should be well beyond the intermediate level as well." Jiraiya stood up and turned to face his teacher. Naruto took to Fuinjutsu like a fish to water, Jiraiya. The Hokage laughed as he reached into his desk and showed his student all the inventions Naruto had made so far. Rather than learning old tricks, he is more of an inventor. "I'm sure he'll understand theories and ideas if you test him on them. But right now he's starting to develop his own style of Fuinjutsu." Jiraiya walked up to the desk and looked at the many tags on the table. "What is all this?" he asked. "This is why I asked you to come back," the old man said with excitement. Naruto sat down with the two men at the desk. He smiled softly and was proud of his hard work. Sarutobi lit his pipe and let his student think about the complicated tags before continuing. "His reasons for making these seals may have been a little immature or precocious," the old man said, making Naruto blush. "But the potential for application behind them is incredible." Naruto felt strangely nervous as he watched his godfather look over his work. Jiraiya was a well-known Fuinjutsu master, and after his parents died, the Sanin was probably Konoha's leading expert in the field. If Naruto's systems had any flaws, his godfather would find them. I've never seen anything like this before," said the sage. "What is this group of seals? I've never seen them set up like this before." He turned to his godson and asked, "Naruto, what are you doing here?" Naruto stood tall and cleared his throat. "Those arrays are meant to control the chakra that flows through them. They are meant to shape the chakra in a way that looks like the signs we make with our hands when we use jutsu. What you see is a seal tag for Efton." Atsugai the boy reached for the tag and put it in his palm. If you put enough chakra into this tag, you could use it to launch the jutsu without any seals. However, you would need wind-natured chakra to do so in this case. It also makes chakra control impossible, said the Hokage. The seal pathways only let the right amount of chakra through. As long as enough chakra is channeled in, the jutsu can be done perfectly. Jiraiya looked at Naruto and said, "You really found a way to make seals work like hand signs." He nodded and said, "Yes, sir. This isn't even the beginning, Jiraiya." The Hokage smiled at his confused student. "You've missed a lot in the last few months. Naruto has changed the field of Fuinjutsu. He's made the most effective and devastating Fuinjutsu security system Konoha has ever seen. He's made the most advanced and effective communication system we've ever had." Jiraiya turned to look at his blushing godson. He's making a new set of a NBU armor with all of his new inventions built in. Once it's done, our NBU teams will be nearly undetectable. Mobile genjutsu generators that can send any kind of information from anywhere in the world back to the village in real time. Sarutobi grinned and said, "This is the start of a new era, Jiraiya, one in which Konoha has a huge advantage over every enemy nation." Jiraiya reached for one of the seals and said, "How is this possible?" "With training and a lot of cage bunshin," Sarutobi said with a chuckle as he puffed on his pipe. "The boy has become quite strong. He already has his own arsenal of fire and wind-natured jutsu, has completely mastered the cage bunshin, and has enough of his own custom fuinjutsu to be on par with him, if not stronger than most experienced Jonin in the village." Naruto looked down at his feet because the praise made him feel bad. "All of this has happened in just 3 months, Jiraiya. Think about what could happen in 10 years when Naruto is fully grown." Jiraiya looked at the boy shakily and said, "Unbelievable. I still need a lot of guidance, Jiraiya-sama," Naruto said softly. "Best of all," the Hokage said with a smirk that caught Jiraiya's eye. The Sannin said, "Naruto did all of this just to impress his little girlfriend." Naruto blushed, and the Sannin's eyes got bigger. He made the security system and the communication system just so he could spend more secret, private time with the girl. He made the communication system just so he could talk to her when she's at the academy. The Hokage laughed happily and said, "She's done more for Konoha than most of our Jonin, and she's still an academy student. She's my best friend." Naruto blushed even more. The old man muttered, "Ah, yes, the best friend you think about all the time, talk to every day, and who inspires every invention you make." The Hokage nodded wisely. "The best friend you can't stand to be away from for more than a few hours, so you sneak into the academy to steal her away." As Jiraiya looked at the boy, his jaw dropped. "I just want Ino-chan to be happy. Don't make me sound so weird." Naruto glared at his grandfather. "And I teach her everything she'd miss at the academy." "Why, you're," Jiraiya said in a soft whisper. "You're the one." "What?" the boy asked. "Excuse me, you're the only one." When Naruto heard the sudden yell, he jumped, and Sarutobi laughed to himself. Jiraiya got down on his knees in front of Naruto and gave him a tight hug. "You're the one, Naruto," he cried with tears running down his face. "You're the chosen one. The child of prophecy. I know it." He swung the boy around and said, "And here I was worried you'd be just like your boring father. I was so wrong. You're a real man, like me." He lifted the boy. The boy asked, "What are you talking about?" Jiraiya put Naruto on the ground, put his hands on his shoulders, and said, "For girls." With a wink, Jiraiya was crying as he held one of Naruto's scrolls. "This security system, it's perfect for research. My stealth is nothing compared to this. We can use this to sneak into any hot springs without being seen. Sarutobi-sensei, we now have a way." The Hokage lowered his hat in shame. "Next time you come do research with me, we'll have the latest technology." Jiraiya-sama, Naruto tried to say. "I thought I was the only one." Jiraiya cried big tears. "When I was your age, I was already enlightened. I knew my destiny. It was then that I made it my mission in life to venture into the wonderful, dangerous world of women. But not even I ever got a girlfriend so young. You're clearly more talented than even me." He pulled Naruto into another hug. Okay, the Hokage said to stop him. "Now you're going too far." Jiraiya pointed at his sensei and said, "Sensei, don't you dare stop my godson from reaching his full potential." Hiruzen sighed and pointed at the boy struggling in Jiraiya's arms. "Unfortunately for you, Naruto here only has eyes for one girl, just like Minato. Now let him go before you suffocate him." "No." Jiraiya threw Naruto to the ground and tried to hold him still. "Naruto, you're far too young to already settle for one person. You have your whole life to live." The man fixed the boy's hair and straightened his clothes. "Come with me. I'll show you how wonderful the world can be. Oh, the caramel sweetness of Kumo, the deadly desert roses of Suna, the warm and wet nights of Aim." "Oh." Naruto looked at his godfather as he gasped for air and said, "I'm afraid I didn't understand any of that." Jiraiya-sama, I think you should try everything before picking a favorite. How can you choose just one girl when you haven't even left the village yet? The boy asked. You mean Ino-chan? Yes, how can you know she's the one for you when you've barely met any other girls? I don't really get it, but I'll always like Ino-chan the most. He smiled. I don't need anyone else. Jiraiya looked like she was mad at the portrait of the yondaime. You stupid jeans. Damn you. Huh? The boy asked. Jiraiya turned to the Hokage and said, Sensei, I need you to let me bring my Godson with me. I need to show him how big and wonderful this world is. Agreed to. Both Jiraiya and Naruto said, What? Really? The Hokage sighed and said, This is why I called Jiraiya back to the village. I'm giving you a new mission, and Naruto will help you. A real mission? Naruto's eyes got very big. Yes, the old man said with a smile. Jiraiya, I want you to find Senju Tsunade and bring her back. I've given her too much freedom over the years. The village needs her, and it's about time she came back. Jiraiya let go of the boy and turned to face the Hokage. I don't care how you do it. Give her whatever she wants within reason, but if she refuses, I'll have to drag her back here myself. Master, are you ready for this? Sarutobi nodded at his student and said, Absolutely. We are entering a new era, and she is needed. Jiraiya laughed and said, All right, then. Naruto said in shock, I'm going outside the village. You're letting me? Really? He smiled at his grandson and motioned for him to come closer. Hiruzen reached into his desk and grabbed the box he hadn't touched in 8 years. He had often wondered when he would get to open it, and he had been looking forward to that day with excitement over the years. Now that it had come a lot sooner than he had thought, he was more than ready to give it to someone else. Congratulations, Naruto Namikaze Uzumaki. The box was put on the Hokage's desk, and he opened it. You are now officially a genin of Konohagakure no Sato, which means you are a ninja of our village. Naruto's eyes got big when he saw it. Here is your official Hirai 8, said the man. The boy looked at the shiny medal with the Konoha leaf on it. This one belonged to the Yondaime Hokage, your father. I have kept it here since he died, waiting for you to take it. The Hokage gently pushed the box to the boy and said, You're ready now, Naruto. I am. He mumbled. He nodded and said, You are. He reached for the Hirai 8 with shaky hands and lightly touched the metal with them. This belonged to Tu-chan. Sarutobi nodded silently. Are you going to give it to me? No one else is good enough for it, my boy. Naruto took the Hirai 8 into his hands slowly and looked at it. As he let out his breath, he looked up at the Hokage and then at Jiraiya. Both of them smiled and nodded at him. He smiled and slowly put the headband on his forehead. As he tightened the blue bands around his head, shivers went down his spine. He made a tight knot and pulled it tighter until he could feel the pressure on his head. Naruto looked at his leader and said, Thank you, Hokage-sama. I'll wear it with pride. The Hokage nodded and said, I know you will, Naruto. Jiraiya patted the boy on the head and was very happy to see him. You wear it well, kid. Naruto couldn't help but smile, and tears started to well up in his eyes. Thank you very much, Jiraiya. Hokage leaned back on his chair and smiled. You shall both leave as soon as you are able. Return home, gather all necessary supplies, and say your goodbyes, Naruto. This will not be a short trip. He turned to Jiraiya. I don't know where Tsunade is right now, but if possible, bring her back within a month. As much as I want Naruto to see the real world, I don't want him away from the village for too long. Jiraiya smiled and said, Don't worry, sensei. I'll take good care of my godson. The Hokage gave Jiraiya a file and said, This is a full report on Naruto's current skills and abilities. It also has detailed explanations of his creations and future plans. Memorize the information inside and destroy the file. This can't get into the wrong hands. I'll make sure of it, Master. Naruto, the Hokage said, I'm sure you'll be able to handle yourself in most situations, but I want you to just watch on this mission. Don't fight unless it's absolutely necessary. Let your godfather do the hard work. Naruto nodded and kept his back straight. Take your time and watch where you step. Assume danger is everywhere and everyone could be an enemy. Don't let your guard down at all. I think you'll be able to do this easily after so many years in the ANBU. I will, Hokage-sama, Naruto said, shaking with excitement. I will not fail this mission. Sarutobi laughed and said, I know you won't. He puffed on his pipe and said, While you're gone, I don't want you to stop working on your Fuinjutsu. Take advantage of your time with Jiraiya. I'm sure there are still many things you can learn from him. Naruto nodded and said, I'll be sure to work hard, Hokage-sama. Good, said the old man, looking at his student. I'll leave Naruto in your care, Jiraiya. Please take care of him. With a smirk, Jiraiya said, With my life, sensei. The Hokage said, Very well, and then added, dismissed. Hi. Naruto raced through the streets of Konoha with the biggest smile on his face. As usual, he moved quickly and smoothly through the afternoon crowds. He was an official shinobi, which means he was a ninja of Konohagakure no Sato. He was an adult in every way, and he could do whatever he wanted. He pumped his fist and jumped onto the nearest roof with a shout of joy. He then did a shunpo and was gone. Within seconds, he was back at the Anbu barracks, sneaking through the hidden entrance like a shadow. Before meeting Jiraiya at the main gate, he had to quickly pack, and he didn't have much more than an hour to say goodbye for a month. Naruto ran to his closet as soon as he stopped in his room. As quickly as he could, he put the seal on his right forearm over 7 folded sets of clothes. In his bathroom, he used the seal on his right upper arm to put all the things he needed for bed. His brush and paper were already sealed, but he quickly sealed all of his offensive seals in the seal on his left wrist before he sealed his katana in the seal on his right wrist. Before taking a quick shower, he almost tore his sweaty clothes off. He didn't use a towel to dry himself off. Instead, he used a quick wind funnel. Naruto jumped into his clothes and put on a pair of standard edition Anbu utility pants, Anbu Model 9 combat boots, and a black fishnet shirt. He then put on a white, high-collared jacket to cover most of his seals. He looked in the mirror to make sure his Hidayate was on right, and then he tightened the knot one more time. He smiled at himself and then used a shunpo to make himself disappear, blending into the Anbu cafeteria and going on a mission, everyone, he yelled. At least 30 of his siblings looked at him as the room went quiet. He smiled as he showed off his new Hidayate and said, Hokage-sama just made me an official genin, and I'm going on my first mission. I'll be back in about a month. Still, everyone just looked at him in silence. Wish me luck. I'll be back soon. Hold on. As the boy was lifted into the air, 4 shadows fell on him. What does this mean? And Nani, I can't breathe. Yugao took her brother out of her grandmother's arms and hugged him herself. No, absolutely not. This has to be a joke, right? She hugged him tight, pulling him as close as she could. You're still a kid, Naruto. You can't go on a mission. Did you say you'd be gone for a month? Shiki's glasses were almost melting as she asked. There is no way in hell I will let that happen. Mizu growled as she pulled Naruto into her arms and hugged him tightly to her chest. This can't be happening. No, it's way too fast. Naruto is just a child. He can't be strong enough to be a genin yet. No, Nana whimpered through tears. I can't let our baby go like this. Ladies, Kei said in a weak voice, please let Naruto breathe. I'm sure if you let him talk, he'll be able to explain himself. Kakashi and Tenzo stood next to Kei, both of them with their hands up in surrender. Naruto, please tell me what's going on. Naruto finally got away and was catching his breath when he said, Jai-chan made me a genin this morning. Jiraiya-sama is back, and he's taking me on my first mission. He moved away from his sisters when they started to show signs of killing intent. I'm just going as his assistant, and I'm only allowed to watch. Jiraiya-sama will do all the work. They just want me to start seeing the real world. It's not dangerous. Not dangerous, yelled Shiki. Do you have any idea what's out there? Nana pulled Naruto by the shoulders and hugged him from behind, saying, no, 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 Nuu. Mizu cried out, with Jiraiya-sama, of all people. He's the worst person to teach Naruto about the outside world. I don't want my little brother to become a pervert. Yugao gave her captain a quick glance and asked, did you know about this, senpai? Kakashi shook his head with a sigh. No, but I can't say it's a surprise. He felt the room's eyes on him. Naruto is already stronger than every graduating genin of the past decade. His exact skills, I can't say, but he will be able to handle himself. If Hokage-sama allowed him on this mission, I'm sure it's nothing too dangerous. Plus, with Jiraiya-sama there, no one would be able to harm him. Nana kissed Naruto's hair and said, but still, he's so young. Tenzo smiled and said, I'm sure it'll be fine. He has to go on his first mission sometime. Naruto nodded and smiled at his brother. A month, you say? That's a long time frame for a mission. Can you tell us the parameters of the mission? Yes, Naruto said. Jai-chan said I can tell you guys. Shiki asked, is it dangerous? No, not at all. Naruto said. Jiraiya-sama and I are going to bring Tsunade-sama back to Konoha. She's a Konoha ninja, so there's no danger at all. The room went quiet again as everyone looked at Naruto. Shiki said, Tsunade-sama, not dangerous. Mizu went on. Kakashi groaned and scratched his head. As violent as Tsunade-sama can be, she won't hurt a child. Jiraiya-sama may be in danger, but Naruto will be fine. If anything, Hokage-sama is sending Naruto with Jiraiya-sama because he's the only person she won't hurt. Yugao knelt down next to Naruto and kissed his hair. Make sure you don't do anything to anger Tsunade-sama, okay? Be on your best behavior and treat her with the utmost respect. Naruto smiled and said, I will. Nana yelled at Yugao, you're not going to let him go, are you? Yugao sighed and stood up. We're not going against Hokage-sama's orders. His other sisters stopped talking. Naruto is an official genin now, so he is fully under Hokage-sama's command. Since this is only a retrieval mission of a friendly target, supported by one of the Sannin, I'm sure Naruto will be fine. She smiled at her friends. Nana's lips trembled as she said, my Naru-chan is growing up so quickly. Tenzo laughed and put his arm around his brother. Naruto, have you packed everything correctly? Yes, sir. Naruto saluted. I've done everything the Anbu wants me to do. Tenzo told Naruto, a taboy, as he ruffled the boy's hair. Kakashi asked, what about your extra supplies? You have all your seals with you. Naruto nodded and said, I do. I have everything I'll need. Kakashi sighed and gave the boy a hug. Alright, then. Be careful out there, and make sure to stay close to Jiraiya-sama. When his brother hugged him back, Naruto said, I will, Kakaniai. Kei ruffled his hair and said, don't let new things distract you. You'll see a lot of things outside the village that you've never seen before, but keep your mind on the mission and don't relax your guard. Naruto gave Kei a smile and said, I'll do it, Kei-niai. Okay, you've all wasted enough of his time, said Anbu Commander Ryu in a tone that cut through the room and split the crowd. Hokage-sama has given Naruto an official mission. None of you can do anything to stop Naruto from finishing this mission, he said as he stood in front of Naruto. Naruto, you've grown up in the last few months. I know your strength better than most, and I'm sure you'll be able to handle this. Go out there and make us proud, Chibai. I will, Commander. Naruto saluted his teacher. My Naru-chan, Nana said as she wiped her eyes. Naruto turned around and gave each of his sisters a big hug and a kiss on the cheek. He smiled as big as he could for each of them. He looked at his other brothers and sisters, rubbed his new Hidaite, and gave a salute. I promise I won't let any of you down. Commander Ryu nodded and said, may the will of fire keep you warm on your journey, Naruto. All of his siblings smiled at him with pride. Naruto left the barracks, all packed and ready to go, and walked into the busy streets of Konoha. It was getting late in the day, and the sun was starting to go down. His quick math told him that the academy should have ended already, and based on what they had talked about the night before, Ino should be working at her family's store. Naruto sighed and started walking toward Yamanaka Flowers. Even though he was happy, his smile quickly disappeared when he realized he didn't know how to tell Ino he was leaving. Since the day they met, he had been most looking forward to seeing her again. The best thing in his life was being able to see her every day, and he worked harder than he ever had before to make that happen. Now he was going to be gone for at least a month, which meant he wouldn't see his purple flower princess for 30 whole days. At least they had scrolls and rings with them. They could still talk to each other whenever they want, and he could always hold her hand. It beat having nothing. Naruto was walking slowly through the streets for once, and he didn't notice that everyone was staring at him in shock and amazement. Dozens of people's heads turned as he walked down street after street, all of them looking at the Yondame's head on the mountain. People around him were whispering, gasping in shock, and smiling, full of hope. But the boy didn't notice any of it. He didn't look up until he got to Yamanaka Flowers. As he walked into the store, the doorbell rang. Welcome to Yamanaka Flowers, said the voice he liked best in the whole world. It's Naruto. When she saw him, Ino's eyes lit up, and she ran around the counter to get to him. As she got closer, her smile got bigger. He couldn't help but smile when he saw her, and when she ran into his arms, he wrapped his arms tight around her. She laughed as he held her close and lifted her up a little. Yamanaka Inoichi smiled as he leaned against the counter and said, Ino, at least try to stop yourself. You're working, you know. Oh, honey, leave her alone, Emiko said, smiling. They're so cute together. Ino ignored her parents and smiled at Naruto. What are you doing here? I thought we weren't going to meet until later. Naruto smiled at her, but as he pointed to his Hidaite, Inoichi and Emiko's smiles faded and they walked toward him. Hokage-sama just gave me this, he said, looking at Ino as she looked up at his forehead and stared at it blankly for a moment before her eyes grew wider. And now a genin? Inoichi asked the boy in a worried tone, so soon. As he walked up to him, why so quickly? Emiko grabbed her husband's arm and looked up at him with worry. Hokage-sama allowed this. Yes, he gave me the rank today, Naruto told them with a nod. Ino whispered, how? As she looked up at the Hidaite, Naruto smiled down at his best friend, Ino-chan, and said, I've been training for a long time for this, Ino-chan. I guess all my training has paid off. But, said Ino, we're still so young. We shouldn't be genin yet. Naruto tilted his head and said, I'm a little ahead of schedule, but I'm sure you'll catch up with me soon. Inoichi got down on one knee in front of the kids as Ino pulled away from Naruto while still holding his hand. I'm glad you're so strong already, Naruto, but you're still very young. Are you sure you're ready for this? Naruto looked at his worried surrogate aunt and then smiled at his surrogate uncle. He rubbed his Hidaite and said, "This belonged to my father." Inoichi and Emiko's eyes grew wide. Hokage-sama kept this for me all these years. He wouldn't give it to me if I wasn't ready. He tightened his grip on Ino's hand. I came by to show you this, but I'm also leaving for my first mission today. Their eyes widened. I'm leaving in less than an hour. I just wanted to say goodbye. What? Stuttered Ino. You're leaving? For how long? Naruto gave a sad smile and said, "At least a month." The adult's eyes widened and he said, "I could come back sooner, but it's been estimated to take a month." No, said Ino. Inoichi asked, "You've already been given a sensei and a team, right?" Naruto shook his head and said, "No, there isn't an official sensei or team yet." Emiko's husband joined her on the ground next to the kids. Today, Jiraiya-sama came back to the village, Inoichi said. Emiko gasped and Inoichi jerked back. He's agreed to take me with him on his next mission. I'll be his assistant and watch how things work in the real world. I won't fight unless it's absolutely necessary. Jiraiya-sama will take care of everything. I'm just there to learn. Emiko nodded and reached for the arm of her husband. She muttered, "All right, okay," and looked a little scared. Jiraiya-sama is here, and Jiraiya-sama can keep you safe. Is anyone else going with you? Inoichi asked with a frown. No, just me and Jiraiya-sama. Naruto smiled at them. He's my godfather. He's been watching over me my whole life, even though I've never met him in person until today. He laughed. I do want to get to know him. Also, he taught my father. Maybe he can teach me something cool, too. Inoichi smiled weakly and said, "Yes, Jiraiya-sama will be able to teach you many things. Remember to always stay close to Jiraiya-sama, okay?" Naruto smiled at Emiko and nodded. It's not like the village. It can be very dangerous out there. Be careful and don't go off on your own. No, I won't, he said. I promise. Ino whispered, "What are you all saying? You can't go." "It's only for a month, Ino-chan," he replied. "I'll be back in no time. It doesn't matter how long it is." Ino's eyes were filled with tears, which made his heart hurt. "It's too dangerous out there, and you're too young. We're supposed to be students, not active ninjas. Aruka-sensei keeps telling us not to leave the village because it's full of our enemies." She pulled him into a tight hug and said, "You can't go." "No." Naruto gave her a soft rub on the back and said, "I'll be fine, Ino-chan." Inoichi ran his hand through his daughter's hair and said, "Princess, Naruto is stronger than you think." The boy nodded. "Do you know who Jiraiya-sama is? You may have heard about him at the academy. He's one of the legendary Sannin. He's one of the most powerful shinobi in the whole world. Naruto will be safe with him." She screamed no into Naruto's chest. Emiko wiped her tears away and told Ino, "Naruto-chan is now a genin and will be going on missions." "No," Ino cried, "I won't let you go. I promise I'll be safe, Ino-chan," he said as he slowly pulled away, rubbing her shaking arms as he did so. His heart hurt as he fought against her hug. "I'm actually stronger than you think. This is a simple mission. I'm just traveling with Jiraiya-sama," he said, pulling himself away from her and holding her hands in front of him as he winked at her. "I'll bring back as many gifts for you as I can." "I don't need any gifts," she cried. "Just promise me that you'll come back safely." Naruto nodded and said, "I will. I promise, Ino-chan." Emiko kissed the top of his head and said, with tears in her eyes, "Naruto-chan, come home safely." "Yes, I'll." Inoichi smiled and ruffled Naruto's hair, saying, "We're really proud of you, Naruto." He said, with a smile, "Thank you, Ajusan." Naruto kept looking at Ino, who was still crying and sobbing, until she finally looked into his eyes. "Naruto-kun, come back to me." "You already know I will, Ino-chan." Naruto took a step back and slowly backed out the door as Ino was wrapped up in her parents' arms. He smiled. He looked into her eyes. Even though she was crying, she was still the most beautiful girl in the world. He'd miss her more than anyone or anything else. He promised himself that he would do anything to get back to her, whether it was on this mission or any other mission he would take in the future. He always came back to her because she was his anchor and his home. Naruto turned on his ring and grabbed Ino's hand tightly as he walked away, trying to stop her from shaking. He kept it until he reached the gate. When Jiraiya said hello to him, he held it. He held onto it until she stopped shaking. Naruto spent a lot of time as a child looking outside the walls of Konoha, where he lived, at the endless forest on the horizon and wondering how big the world must be. The boy had read about the world in books. He knew about Tetsu no Kuni's frozen tundra, Kaminari no Kuni's floating mountain ranges, and Kei's no Kuni's endless desert, but he wondered if they were really like that. In Naruto's mind, it all seemed so strange and out of reach. But when he left the village, he felt like he was making progress. First, we're going southwest to Kawa no Kuni, Jiraiya said, pulling Naruto out of his thoughts. Tsunade rarely leaves High no Kuni and prefers warmer climates, so we'll start in the southwest and head east, passing through the southern part of High no Kuni and its borders until we reach the east. Tsunade should be somewhere in these areas. Naruto stood up straight and politely nodded to the Sannin. Understood, Jiraiya-sama, he said. Jiraiya laughed and shook his head. Naruto, I'm your godfather, not your commander. He patted Naruto on the head and ruffled his hair. Just call me Jiraiya Jiji or Jiji. This is an official mission, but we're mostly staying inside High no Kuni, so relax a bit and enjoy the road. Naruto looked at the man and nodded, as you say, J Jiji. There you go, he said with a grin. This goes against my training, but I'll trust your judgment. Naruto wondered how Commander Ryu would feel about being treated so casually and unprofessionally while on a mission, but he changed the subject. I guess if we talk in a casual way, it will help us blend in with the crowds of regular people. That's true, but it won't matter much, Jiraiya said with a smile as he looked straight ahead. I stand out in these parts, and most people will recognize me at a glance, so there's no point in hiding in plain sight. Most people will assume we're here for some kind of mission, so just act like you don't care and let them guess. Naruto stood tall and said, I understand, Jiji. I'll do my part. Jiraiya laughed. I see I'm going to have to go through the same thing with you, he muttered as Naruto looked up at him with a confused look on his face. I took your father on a lot of these trips when he was a genin, and he was also a stick in the mud. Naruto's eyes widened as the man continued, always professional and polite. It took me forever to get him to bend the rules, let alone break them. He looked at Naruto and said, I hope I'll have an easier time with you. The boy asked in surprise, why would you want 2chan to break the rules? Jiraiya thought for a moment before saying, when your father was a genin, he was already hard and strong, like pure iron. But iron is brittle, and he'd break before he'd bend. That's useless as a shinobi. You must follow the rules, but you must also understand what they are. They are guidelines you should follow, not hard boundaries you must never cross. When he thought about it, Naruto's Anbu upbringing clashed with this new idea. Of course, you don't want to bend needlessly. A weak man like that is like bronze, nice to look at and friendly to most people, but worthless in the end. Jiraiya looked down at the boy. I wanted your father and now you to be like steel. Strong and powerful, but can take a beating. You'd bend and keep fighting without breaking. I get it. I may not be used to it yet, but like you said, Jiji, I'll figure it out. Jiraiya laughed and smiled. That's my boy, he said. I was afraid you'd be just like your father, but it's nice to see that your mother's genes balance out his strictness. He smiled and said, thank you, Jiji. As the sun started to go down, the Godfather and Godson kept going down the long, winding road. Their shadows grew longer and longer behind them as the sun went down. Naruto's first few hours away from Konoha went by quickly, and before he knew it, he was almost out of the endless forest. When he looked up, the mountain range in the distance that he often looked at from the Hokage mountain looked very close. When he saw the tops of the mountains, he realized how far he was already from home. As Naruto got close to the end of the forest, the setting sun cast a warm orange glow over the land. The trees ahead were getting fewer and farther apart. The road ahead got wider, and he could see forks in the road. They were officially leaving Konoha and going to faraway places. The boy's excitement was fueled by a strange sense of adventure that made him walk faster and look further. Okay, this is where we'll set up our camp for the night. Naruto stopped and looked at his godfather. What? He asked. It's still early. Let's keep going. Jiraiya laughed and ran his fingers through the boy's hair. It will be dark soon. If we keep going, we'll end up in the middle of nowhere. If we stop now, at least we'll be able to sleep in a nice forest. Naruto gave a pouty nod. Say, hi, Jiji. This also lets me see how your security system works, said the Sannin with a smile. Why don't you put your seals around this area? I'll start a fire while you do that. Hi, Naruto said with a smile. Naruto had spent the last few weeks making his security system better, as he had promised the Hokage he would. Instead of putting the system on several seal tags, he put it all on a single scroll. Naruto made a copy of his security system in a straight line on a single sheet of paper. The base of the scroll, which was shaped like a roll, was the chakra battery and genjutsu generator. The long sheet of paper wrapped around it had the seals for expanding chakra, making noise, and getting rid of smell. All you had to do was tie the scroll to something in the middle of your camp, like a tree or a big rock. When Naruto saw that they were in a forest, he tied the scroll to a tall birch tree and activated his system by tapping it. The system is on, Gigi. He grinned. This will give us about a 25 feet radius of protection. No sound or smell will get out. A genjutsu will also be projected through the chakra expansion seal, so anyone looking from outside the radius will only see the forest. If I need to, I can change the genjutsu into something more dangerous, but for tonight, I think this will do. Jiraiya whistled and muttered, Sensei wasn't joking, as he looked at the simple scroll. This will really change things around Konoha. Just having one of these will make it much less likely that you'll be ambushed at night. Yes, sir. This is my latest prototype. Once I find a failsafe, Hokage-sama will let me start making a lot of these for our allies. Jiraiya sat by a campfire he had made and smiled at the boy. Ah, yes, I can see why that will be necessary. Come and join me, Naruto. Hi. Naruto got down on his knees in front of the fire and put his hands on his lap. Jiraiya laughed as he added more wood to the fire and asked, have you made any progress with the failsafe? Naruto nodded and said, I have, but at the cost of production efficiency. These prototypes I've made can be used by anyone who can channel chakra inside the seal, but to make sure that only certain people can use it, I've made a scroll that will only accept a single person's unique chakra signature. It's possible, but I'll have to get a chakra sample from each person who wants one of these scrolls. Jiraiya nodded. Right, so each person will have their own unique security system that only they can turn on. He nodded. That's good. But if your scroll is lost in battle or you die, would the enemy be able to reverse engineer your seals by taking it apart? I've made more changes for this very reason. Naruto cleared his throat and sat up straighter. The scroll will require chakra to open, and it can only be opened safely with the owner's unique chakra signature. If someone else tries to open it with foreign chakra, the hidden seal I've placed inside the scroll will activate. It's a very simple but powerful explosive tag. If the enemy tries to open the scroll, it will explode in their hands, most likely killing them if not. Jiraiya laughed and said, You've thought of everything. Naruto grinned and said, as Hokage-sama told me, the ANBU will be the first to use the system, but teams from our regular forces will also benefit from it. Jiraiya laughed and patted the boy on the head as he said, I haven't read your whole report yet, but I can already tell that your ideas will take our offensive and defensive skills to a whole new level. Naruto, your parents would be so proud of you. The boy smiled and said, Thank you, Gigi. As he looked into the fire, Naruto watched as his godfather pulled out a large spread of food from his own scroll. The boy thought he would have to eat food pills until they reached the first town, but he was happy to see a big plate of rice balls, skewers of raw meat, 2 coolers full of drinks, and, most importantly, a big pile of instant ramen. The sage had already put a pot of water on the fire to boil, and was ready to cook the skewers on a grill. Jiraiya grinned and said, When I read about your security system, I went grocery shopping in the village. I usually only eat food pills when camping at night, but since we have privacy tonight, let's have some good food for a change. He added, This can be like a real camping trip with some real camping food. Sure, this looks great, Naruto said with a smile. Jiraiya held up some skewers and a cup of instant ramen and said, Now I've made a lot of things, but I'm most interested in 2 of them. Of course, you can have whatever you want, but which one of these do you like more? Naruto looked confused, but Jiraiya laughed and said, These skewers were your father's favorite, but your mother loved nothing more than instant ramen. I'm just curious to see which one you like more. The boy laughed and pointed to the ramen. I guess I'm more like Kachan when it comes to food. I love ramen. Again, Jiraiya laughed and shook his head. Well, let's go get you some ramen. Naruto found it strange that the cold forest felt warm and cozy. Jiraiya was much more caring and loving than Naruto ever thought a man with his reputation could be, and he made Naruto feel very safe and at ease. He was so smart and cool at the same time. He was wise, calm, and aware, but he kept to himself. Jiraiya was almost the opposite of most of what he had learned in the ANBU, but he was a Sannin, one of the most powerful shinobi Konoha had ever made. Naruto started to question for the first time if the ANBU doctrine was really for him. He loved his family with all his heart and would give his life to protect each and every one of his siblings. But as a shinobi, he found his godfather's life to be much more interesting for his nindo. Naruto also wanted to see the world, learn about the elemental nations, and get stronger as a shinobi. The way his godfather lived during the day was much more interesting than the way he worked at night. When Naruto became a Jonin in a few years, he might not join the ANBU and lead an assassination team. Instead, he might become a spy and travel the world with Ino-chan. He turned on his ring and held Ino's hand gently. Even though it was late and she was probably sleeping, he wanted to touch her. So far, it had been a great day, and the only thing that could have made it better was if Ino had also been there. She would enjoy the woods and the campfire. He felt Ino pull back on his hand, and he smiled as he gently held onto her grip and tried to picture her peaceful smile. There's nothing better than a cold treat after dinner. Naruto looked up from his thoughts and saw that his godfather was holding something in his hands. It was a popsicle that had been cut in half. He gave her a smile and said, "Thank you, Gigi." Jiraiya laughed and said, "Both your mother and father love these." Naruto liked the cold desert, and he said, "I do, too." "Good," the man said with a smile. "After dessert, let's try to get some sleep. Tomorrow we have another day of walking until we reach the nearest town. I can't wait." He bit into the popsicle and smiled as he squished himself back into Ino's grip. He was very excited about the rest of his mission. "I guess it's not that surprising," said Shikaku, leaning against the back of his chair as he drank another cup of sake. "A lot of our friends became genin early. Kakashi graduated when he was only 5 years old. And almost no one in his generation graduated at 12. Naruto is on the right track, if anything. We were at war back then," Inoichi muttered, rubbing his temples as the sake began to make his head hurt. "We didn't have a choice. After the war, a lot of people from that generation needed mental health care, and I helped a lot of them." The Ino Shikacho got together again in the Yamanaka estates after the sun went down. The sake was passed around and cups were shared, and the conversation never got too far away from the Yondaime Hokage's legacy. "But he's not going to war," Chusa said as he stuffed a big bowl of rice into his mouth. He burped after swallowing. "Plus, if Hokage-sama gave Naruto this mission, it means the boy is ready for it. The Sandaime probably cares more about Naruto than any of us, so if he allows it, I'm sure everything will be fine." Emiko rested her hand on her husband's arm as she sipped from her own cup. "You're right, but it doesn't make me worry any less. Naruto-chan is still so young. Imagine if this was any of our children going on their first mission." She drained her cup. "He should be going to the academy and playing in the park, not traveling around the world." Shikaku groaned as he poured himself another drink. "This will be good for the boy. Keeping him as a civilian would be a waste of his potential." He drank his drink. "No, we're not at war right now, but when has war ever been far away?" He looked at his friends, his family. "If anything, we've been lucky these last few years. At the end of the last war, we had all the advantages, but since then, we've lost Orochimaru and almost lost Tsunade-sama. We lost the Kyuubi as a last resort, and we lost Minato, the one person who scared the crap out of everyone else. Honestly, I expected Iwa and Kumo to attack us as soon as he died." Chusa nodded and said, "Our children will see war in their lives. I just pray that we will still be strong enough to protect them when that time comes." Inoichi groaned as his wife screamed in horror. "Great, I ask you guys to help me and you make things worse." He pulled Emiko close and kissed her temple. "We're just making things up, honey." "Either way," Shikaku said, "it's not a bad idea to make sure the next generation is ready for the future. We grew up in war and had to grow up fast, but kids these days are growing up in peacetimes. Shikamaru isn't even willing to go to class on time, and I expect him to lead the Nara clan in the future, and he's even lazier than me." Chusa grunted. "Choji has potential, but he won't hurt a fly. I don't want to break his kindness, but sooner or later he's going to have to grow up." He finished his food and said, "Naruto is young, but he has the most potential of anyone in his generation. If he's anything like his parents, we're going to have to let him grow up." Inoichi sighed. I know. He shook his head. "I guess I just don't want to think about my little girl getting involved with all of this. She's not ready to be a kunoichi, not at all. She'll need her time. I will make sure she's ready when the time comes, but I'm going to make sure she has much time as possible to be a child. We fought so hard in the last war so our children can enjoy their lives." Emiko hugged her husband and said, "Thank you, honey. We all want that for our children, Emiko." Shikaku sighed as he put down his cup. "Shikamaru, Choji, and Ino have that luxury, but Naruto doesn't. He is burdened by his father's name, by his talent, and by his future responsibility." He looked at his friends and said, "It's clear that Hokage-sama is training Naruto to be a possible successor." Emiko frowned and said, "This is far too much pressure to put on one boy." Shikaku laughed and said, "I'm pretty sure he doesn't even know." "Either way," Inoichi mumbled, "it's way too early to worry about it right now. Let's wait a few years. He just became a genin." He pulled his wife close and put his arm around her waist. "It's not like he'll be going on a rank missions anytime soon. It's ahead of schedule, but he's a smart and capable boy, so I'm sure he'll be able to handle it. Hey, Tu-chan." The sound of Ino's voice almost made the adults jump out of their seats. Inoichi and Emiko sat up right away, trying to look as awake as they could for their daughter. As the girl ran into the room, everyone could see that her eyes were still a little puffy from all her crying, but she was smiling big. She ran to her dad, jumped on his lap, and showed him her hand with a smile. "Princess," Inoichi whispered softly as he held his little girl, "you're supposed to be asleep. The adults are talking right now. Why can't you sleep?" Emiko asked her daughter as she held her hand. "Naruto-kun is fine," Ino said with a smile to her parents. Inoichi asked, "What do you mean?" Ino showed her father her new ring with a big smile on her face. Iruka-sensei said that the first 8 hours of the mission are the most dangerous. It's been longer than that, so Naruto-kun has already passed the most dangerous part. Shikaku laughed and whispered, "Where do they even get these numbers?" Chusa smiled and said, "Probably basic B-ranked missions." Inoichi said, "That's great, honey," making sure he was louder than his teammates. "I told you Naruto would be fine. It's dangerous out there, but nothing he can't handle." With a smile, Ino grabbed her hand and said, "Yes, Naruto-kun is the best." Emiko gave her daughter a smile and said, "So sweet." Shikaku asked his surrogate niece, "Ino-chan, how did Naruto find you and what did you mean when you grabbed my hand?" Ino jumped off her father's lap and ran to her uncle, where she was happy to give him her hand. "This ring," she exclaimed. "Naruto-kun gave it to me for my birth, a mighty sage from the mysterious realm of Mount Mayaboku. At the sight of his perfect vision, his enemies shake in fear, all children rejoice, and all women squeal. Here is Jiraiya, the all-powerful Toad Sage." Naruto had heard many stories about his godfather. His Jai-chan had often talked about his many victories in 2 world wars, and Kakaniai had praised the Sanin's contribution to the Yondame's strength and success. However, when Naruto saw his godfather now, wild and out of control, posing like a kabuki actor on top of an armored toad, he knew Jiraiya-sama was way cooler than he thought. The boy was nervous about finally meeting his godfather, a man who had been in his life since he was born but whom he had never met. Every other month or so, and always on his birthday, gifts would find their way to Naruto in the mouth of a toad. The boy had grown used to puffs of smoke revealing toads in his room and had come to look forward to them. Still, Naruto had often wondered what Jiraiya would be like, since he had never met him in person. He had heard so many stories about him that he thought he would be a war-torn old hero, maybe stoic and strict like Commander Ryu. He was happy to find out that his godfather was funny, cool, and full of life. "I see stunned silence," yelled the big man, who stood taller than everyone else on his toad. "Hi, Jiraiya. How many times do I have to tell you? Don't break in through my window and don't call your toad inside," yelled the Sandame as he glared at his student. "Ma, calm down, sensei," Jiraiya said as his toad disappeared in a puff of smoke. "What's one window for my entrance?" He smiled as he looked down at Naruto and walked quickly toward him. "This is the first time I've met my godson in person. It's nice to finally meet you, Naruto," he said as he knelt in front of the boy, who was still a head taller than him. Naruto looked at the man for a moment and then bowed. "Nice to meet you, too," he said, "Jiraiya-sama." The Sanin's smile turned into a small smile. "You really are like Minato," he said softly. "You look almost exactly like him." His smile came back, and he put a warm hand on Naruto's head and ruffled his hair. "This haircut, too. If someone knew your father, they would know you right away." He laughed. "I know your mother would be mad at your father. Clearly, his genes have been too strong in you." Naruto smiled slightly and said, "Yeah, I hear that a lot. Maybe on the outside." "Yes," the Hokage said with a smile. "But Naruto has a lot of Uzumaki blood in him. He takes after his mother when it comes to Fuinjutsu." "You sure? So you're interested in seals, huh?" asked the Sanin with a smile. "I thought you would like it. Both of your parents were crazy about it." Again, he ruffled the boy's hair and asked, "Did you finish the books I sent you? They were a little hard to understand, but I'm sure you could have done it." Naruto nodded and said, "Those were just the beginning books. Once you know more about seals, I can start you off on the more difficult stuff." "Jiraiya," the Sandame said with a smile, "I'm afraid Naruto here is already far beyond the introductory volumes." The Sanin raised an eyebrow at his sensei before looking back at his godson. He should be well beyond the intermediate level as well. Jiraiya stood up and turned to face his teacher. Naruto took to Fuinjutsu like a fish to water, Jiraiya. The Hokage laughed as he reached into his desk and showed his student all the inventions Naruto had made so far. Rather than learning old tricks, he is more of an inventor. I'm sure he'll understand theories and ideas if you test him on them. But right now he's starting to develop his own style of Fuinjutsu. Jiraiya walked up to the desk and looked at the many tags on the table. "What is all this?" he asked. "This is why I asked you to come back," the old man said with excitement. Naruto sat down with the two men at the desk. He smiled softly and was proud of his hard work. Sarutobi lit his pipe and let his student think about the complicated tags before continuing. His reasons for making these seals may have been a little immature or precocious, the old man said, making Naruto blush. But the potential for application behind them is incredible. Naruto felt strangely nervous as he watched his godfather look over his work. Jiraiya was a well-known Fuinjutsu master, and after his parents died, the Sannin was probably Konoha's leading expert in the field. If Naruto's systems had any flaws, his godfather would find them. I've never seen anything like this before, said the sage. What is this group of seals? I've never seen them set up like this before. He turned to his godson and asked, Naruto, what are you doing here? Naruto stood tall and cleared his throat. Those arrays are meant to control the chakra that flows through them. They are meant to shape the chakra in a way that looks like the signs we make with our hands when we use jutsu. What you see is a seal tag for Efton. Atsugai the boy reached for the tag and put it in his palm. If you put enough chakra into this tag, you could use it to launch the jutsu without any seals. However, you would need wind-natured chakra to do so in this case. It also makes chakra control impossible, said the Hokage. The seal pathways only let the right amount of chakra through. As long as enough chakra is channeled in, the jutsu can be done perfectly. Jiraiya looked at Naruto and said, you really found a way to make seals work like hand signs. He nodded and said, yes, sir. This isn't even the beginning, Jiraiya. The Hokage smiled at his confused student. You've missed a lot in the last few months. Naruto has changed the field of Fuinjutsu. He's made the most effective and devastating Fuinjutsu security system Konoha has ever seen. He's made the most advanced and effective communication system we've ever had. Jiraiya turned to look at his blushing godson. He's making a new set of a NBU armor with all of his new inventions built in. Once it's done, our ANBU teams will be nearly undetectable, mobile genjutsu generators that can send any kind of information from anywhere in the world back to the village in real time. Sarutobi grinned and said, this is the start of a new era, Jiraiya, one in which Konoha has a huge advantage over every enemy nation. Jiraiya reached for one of the seals and said, how is this possible? With training and a lot of cage bunshin, Sarutobi said with a chuckle as he puffed on his pipe. The boy has become quite strong. He already has his own arsenal of fire and wind-natured jutsu, has completely mastered the cage bunshin, and has enough of his own custom Fuinjutsu to be on par with him, if not stronger than most experienced Jonin in the village. Naruto looked down at his feet because the praise made him feel bad. All of this has happened in just 3 months, Jiraiya. Think about what could happen in 10 years when Naruto is fully grown. Jiraiya looked at the boy shakily and said, unbelievable. I still need a lot of guidance. Jiraiya-sama, Naruto said softly. Best of all, the Hokage said with a smirk that caught Jiraiya's eye. The Sannin said, Naruto did all of this just to impress his little girlfriend. Naruto blushed, and the Sannin's eyes got bigger. He made the security system and the communication system just so he could spend more secret, private time with the girl. He made the communication system just so he could talk to her when she's at the academy. The Hokage laughed happily and said, she's done more for Konoha than most of our Jonin. And she's still an academy student. She's my best friend. Naruto blushed even more. The old man muttered, yes, the best friend you think about all the time, talk to every day, and who inspires every invention you make. The Hokage nodded wisely. The best friend you can't stand to be away from for more than a few hours, so you sneak into the academy to steal her away. As Jiraiya looked at the boy, his jaw dropped. I just want Ino-chan to be happy. Don't make me sound so weird. Naruto glared at his grandfather. And I teach her everything she'd miss at the academy. Why, your Jiraiya said in a soft whisper. You're the one. What? The boy asked. Excuse me. You're the only one. When Naruto heard the sudden yell, he jumped, and Sarutobi laughed to himself. Jiraiya got down on his knees in front of Naruto and gave him a tight hug. You're the one, Naruto. He cried with tears running down his face. You're the chosen one, the child of prophecy. I know it. He swung the boy around and said, and here I was worried you'd be just like your boring father. I was so wrong. You're a real man, like me. He lifted the boy. The boy asked, what are you talking about? Jiraiya put Naruto on the ground, put his hands on his shoulders, and said, for girls. With a wink, Jiraiya was crying as he held one of Naruto's scrolls. This security system. It's perfect for research. My stealth is nothing compared to this. We can use this to sneak into any hot springs without being seen. Jiraiya smiled and nodded. Yes, that would be amazing, he said. Kami, the entire forest could be manipulated. Genjutsu, he muttered. Imagine turning the entire forest into a catalyst for genjutsu. Anyone who would step inside would immediately be trapped in an illusion of whatever we want. We basically have unlimited chakra. Naruto's eyes widened. If done properly, it would be the ultimate security system. we could make Konoha basically invulnerable to any attack force. No one would ever be able to invade us. Jiraiya smiled at the boy's surprise and said, yes, you're right on all counts. That's why it's been tried many times before. After the Shodai died, the Nadim tried to use this forest and its root network for surveillance, hoping to spy on anyone inside it. Sarutobi Sensei wanted to use the network to create a chakra superweapon during the Second Great Ninja War, hoping to use it to fire a blast of nature chakra directly at the enemy from a long distance. He tried again during the Third Great Ninja War, hoping to create a chakra barrier from the forest, blocking all invaded forces from. Why? Naruto asked, eager to find out more. These trees don't respond to regular chakra, and it didn't matter how much we sent into the roots. I know how to manipulate natural chakra, and I tried to use it to move the root system once, but it didn't even move. Jiraiya shook his head. No, even if this forest could be manipulated, we would need an ungodly amount of natural chakra with probably a chakra signature very close to the Shodai Hokage's. As you can imagine, can I make a request to try it myself? The Sannin laughed. Sure, once you get the clearance. Usually, you'd need to be a Janin. This is highly technical, cutting-edge research, and you're still years too young to join the current researchers. Naruto pouted, but you've made more progress in Fuinjutsu than any of these researchers, so who knows? You can ask Sarutobi Sensei when we get back to the village. Hi, I will, Naruto said with a smile. But now it's time for you to go to bed, I told him. It's getting late, and I want to leave before sunrise. If we move quickly, we'll reach a town by the end of tomorrow. The boy sighed and said, fine, as he curled up in his sleeping bag. If you listen well, I'll teach you a new jutsu as we walk, said Naruto's godfather. Naruto's eyes widened and he turned to look at his godfather. Only if you pay attention. What kind of martial art? One your father made himself, Jiraiya said with a smirk. Naruto almost yelled, really? Yes, but you'll need your energy to learn it, so go to sleep. Jiraiya laughed as the boy groaned in frustration. I'll wake you up when it's time to go. He muttered, fine, and then, good night, Jiji. Naruto, good night. Naruto's journey started again as his godfather led him down the well-worn path. The sun had not yet risen. It was a calm, windy, but cozy morning. The two finally got out of the endless forest. They stepped onto a wider road with a view of farmland that went all the way to the faraway mountain ranges that surrounded Kuni. Based on their map, they weren't too far from the next town, but there wasn't much between them except for nature and the road. Naruto, however, didn't seem to notice. It took your father 3 years to make this jutsu, said Jiraiya, looking down at his godson. It's an ranked, close-range, offensive jutsu that requires an expert level of chakra control and a deep understanding of chakra shape manipulation. Naruto nodded and said, I've spent many hours working on both areas. Good, said the Sannin in answer. This jutsu is the best way to change the shape of chakra. When your father was alive, he did a lot of research on the theories behind it. He found that if a mass of chakra had enough power, density, rotation, and control, it could stay alive on its own. This is the idea behind this jutsu. The boy looked on as Jiraiya put his hand up in the air. This is called the Rasengan. Naruto's eyes got bigger as he saw visible amounts of concentrated chakra swirling in the Sannin's palm, churning and spinning at incredible speeds, colliding, and shaping into a sphere. As more chakra was added, the rotation sped up, but the shape stayed the same. In an instant, Jiraiya had a powerful typhoon of chakra in his hand. Once it's formed, the Rasengan doesn't need any more chakra to keep going. It's stuck in this shape with enough spinning momentum to keep going. When it hits an enemy, it grinds into them, destroying their bodies at the point of contact. Most enemies' bodies aren't strong enough to break the Rasengan's shape and spin, so it just grinds them away. Naruto muttered, it doesn't need hand signs, and it's quiet. Jiraiya nodded and said, yes, it is simple and elegant. The boy asked, how do I start to learn this? The Rasengan is made up of 3 parts, rotation, power, and confinement. You must first learn to rotate your chakra so that you can spin it in many different directions at once. You'll start with just a few wisps of chakra, but you'll need to add power to the rotation so that you can see the chakra with the naked eye. Okay, I'll start with rotation. Yes, Jiraiya said with a smile, and I've prepared these for this part of your training. The sage opened a scroll for Naruto, then opened that one as well, revealing a large bag full of small water balloons. He threw Naruto one of the balloons and said, I made sure to buy supplies back in Konoha. Right now, your goal is to send your chakra into the balloon and make it spin. Your chakra will make the water inside the balloon move, and you'll need to spin your chakra enough to make the balloon pop. Naruto looked at the balloon and gave a small nod. Yes, I get it. Jiraiya put the large bag back into the scroll and said, good. He then threw it to Naruto. Here's the whole bag. Keep practicing until you know how to pop every balloon in it. It should be easy for you. Say, hi, Gigi. Sarutobi Hiruzen felt trapped by his chair, his desk, his robes, his hat, and that damn title. He had been looking down at the same wooden desk for more than 40 years, at the same chipped corner and cut edges, going over the same paperwork over and over again, and wondering when it would end. Hiruzen had already given up his horrible desk to a younger and stronger man. He had been a good husband and worried father for 2 wonderful years, but before he could be a loving grandfather, he was cursed to sit behind his damn desk again. Now, he was just the Hokage and the grandfather who wasn't there. Hokage-sama, said the voice of his 12th secretary. 11 of his previous secretaries had retired and gotten married, so he was on his 12th secretary. Yamanaka Inoichi Dono, Akimichi Chusa Dono, and Nara Shikaku Dono want to see you. They don't have an appointment, but they're willing to wait until it's convenient for you. Sarutobi cleared his throat, sighed, and said, invite them in. The Sandame's double office doors kept making the same annoying creaking sound, which was getting on his nerves. He wondered how much more it could creak before he gave up and burned it to ash. Sarutobi pushed away his inspiration and looked at the 3 men he had been seeing too often lately. But their coming wasn't a surprise. The Hokage was sure that the inventions of his oldest grandson would get out soon enough. They have definitely come to help in the new time. Gentlemen, said the old man, to what do I owe the pleasure? The 3 Jonin bowed, 2 of them lower than the other. It was clear that Shikaku had been drinking too much the night before. Thank you for seeing us so quickly, Hokage-sama, Inoichi said as he bowed again and walked forward. We would have made an appointment, but such important things should be talked about as soon as possible. What kinds of urgent matters? We've heard that things have changed between my daughter and Naruto recently. Sarutobi tried not to laugh, wondering if this was a marriage proposal instead of a fuinjutsu talk. Inoichi stopped and looked at the Hokage. They are extraordinary, Hokage-sama, of the utmost importance. We knew right away that we had to tell you about Naruto's new creations. Chusa agreed and said, these could change the world, Hokage-sama. No, they will change the world. Hokage looked at the 2 men for a while, then glanced at the 3rd, who looked like he was barely alive. Shikaku was just being dragged along, as was his usual way. The Jonin commander was sure about what he thought, and as usual, he was right. Yes, I'm aware of that. I told you so, Shikaku moaned. The Sandame laughed at the 2 men who were surprised. I closely monitor Naruto's training, and I am usually the first person he comes to see upon creating something interesting. He reached into his desk and pulled out a bunch of scrolls. Fuinjutsu is not without its risks, and as talented as the boy is, I do not want him to hurt himself. Luckily for all of us, he works within reason, and even with all the safety restrictions I've imposed upon his creativity, he's made quite the impressive collection of seals. Inoichi asked, so, you've seen his communication scrolls? Yes, I have, Sarutobi said with a smile. You can imagine how surprised I was when he showed me. The last thing I expected that day was for an 8-year-old boy to change everything we knew about chakra resonance and give us the most advanced and useful communication system ever created in the elemental nations. Inoichi and Chusa nodded and moved closer to each other. I was very proud of him, the old man said. I thought Naruto was starting to put the safety and future of the village as his top priority. He had put a lot of thought into his creations. I almost promoted him right then and there. Sarutobi laughed as he shook his head and looked at Inoichi. But it turns out all he wanted to do was talk to Ino-chan when she's at the academy. Inoichi's eyes grew wide. That's why, he asked. I thought Ino's scroll was a prototype after you gave it the go-ahead for military use. Shikaku's smirk made the Hokage laugh, too. The boy didn't even know what he had done. The scrolls he made for Ino-chan and himself were the first ones. He worked on them for days and only finished them quickly because he wanted to give them to her as a birthday present. Inoichi's jaw dropped as his teammates laughed. Can you imagine my shock? Naruto made something just to impress a girl, but it helped us win the next war. Yes, he is Minato's son, Chusa said. Shikaku smiled and said, the kid has his priorities straight. I never even thought of, Inoichi muttered as his mind raced. The Hokage laughed and said, you know, this has happened before. The 3 men just looked at him. They shook their heads, making the old man laugh again. Do you know about their treehouse? Ino-chan chose a tree in the park and told Naruto that it was their secret fort. That night, Naruto built a treehouse in that tree and made the most advanced security system Konoha has ever seen. Shikaku laughed and said, I just made a joke about that. He actually built them a house. Inoichi asked in a shaky voice, what? Yes, this treehouse is probably the safest place in Konoha right now, the Hokage said with a smirk. It has a protective radius around it, and from inside, it is completely soundproof, no scent could escape it, and anyone looking at it will only see a genjutsu recreation of what the tree looked like before. Inoichi stuttered, how is this possible? The Hokage simply said, the boy is a genius in love. He would do almost anything to make your daughter happy. I'm just happy to think about what else he's going to think of next. Me too, Hokage-sama. Shikaku laughed. I love you. Tell me the next time Ino-chan gets sick, the Hokage said. I want to see if Naruto can come up with a way to make a medical seal that kills viruses. Or even better, the next time she trips and scrapes her knee. Shikaku seemed to have gotten rid of his headache, as he was smiling and moving around. A portable healing seal sounds very useful. Just put a tag on a wound, and it would heal. The Jainin commander grinned. Tell Ino-chan to add a few tears or sobs, and I'm sure we'd have something like that in less than a week. Chusa laughed out loud and said, if we do this, we should have Ino tell Naruto she's hungry all the time. The Akamichi clan needs new kinds of food pills, and a few Injutsu equivalent sounds very interesting. Oh, you could punish Ino-chan. Shikaku grinned. Tell her she can't leave the clan estates. Naruto would probably make the Hiraishin just to sneak her out. Inoichi yelled, wait, and tried to ignore the laughter. What are you talking about, love? When Sarutobi reached for his pipe, Shikaku rolled his eyes. Now, Inoichi, you've seen how those two look at each other. They're too young to fully understand their feelings, but it's clear that they're going to be together someday. It's just a crush from when you were young, said the Yamanaka. My baby girl is way too young to be in love with a boy. No. I thought you liked Naruto. Chusa asked. Inoichi said, I love Naruto. He's kind, polite, and cute, but he's too young to be in love. He turned to his friends and said, don't get me wrong, Naruto is great. My wife was begging me to try to adopt him into the family, but they're both way too young to be thinking about love. Shikaku let out a low laugh and said, I'm glad you didn't adopt him. That would have been the worst thing you could have done to Ino-chan. It's okay, the Hokage said. I wouldn't have let it happen anyway. They are not in love. Inoichi moaned in frustration. Sure, they're not in love. Shikaku nodded. They're just very interested in each other. They talk to their scrolls in class, hang out after class, and probably talk until late at night when they get home. They have their own house, they eat and drink together, and they even gave each other rings. Not just any rings, but rings that let them hold hands from far away. Chusa and the Hokage laughed. They do more together than most married people do on their own. Inoichi almost fell to his knees when the Hokage said, I was actually going to offer the Yamanaka clan an arranged marriage proposal. I was going to bring it up at Ino-chan's birthday party, but I thought I should wait a little longer. The way things are going, an arranged marriage seems unnecessary. Shikaku laughed and shook Inoichi's shoulder as he said, that's a good idea. There couldn't be a better match than the Yamanaka clan heiress marrying the son of the Yondaime Hokage, and the future Uzumaki clan head. Chusa shook Inoichi's other shoulder and said, you don't want to waste your time with these things. If you keep stalling, Hayashi might come in and steal Naruto away as a son-in-law. I think his daughter is also the same age as Naruto. No, cried Inoichi. My daughter is not getting engaged. It's fine, Inoichi muttered the Hokage. I'm sure Naruto will propose when they're old enough. There's no need for us old men to step in. Inoichi turned red and said, oh no. That's not what I meant. The Sandaime laughed as he puffed on his pipe and waved his hand to stop the three men from laughing. Okay, gentlemen, calm down, he said with a laugh. We'll let young love grow on its own. Inoichi groaned and bowed his head. Back to your original question, he said, puffing a cloud of smoke. Yes, Naruto's creations will change Konoha and maybe the rest of the world in time. We are working on implementing his new seals into our shinobi forces, starting with the ANBU. Commander Ryu is already working on a prototype with Naruto, and they are making very promising progress. Chusa smiled softly and said, things are going to change around here. Shikaku looked at the Hokage and said, this can't stay hidden for long. And I'm sure Danzo and your old teammates will try to use it for their own purposes. Naruto is an active shinobi now, the Hokage said. He is under my direct command. He is not in the ANBU, he is in the light. When he is in the village, I will assign one of my most elite ANBU teams to guard him at all times. When he is outside of the village, it will only be under the supervision of Jiraiya. I will not allow any unsavory characters to approach him. He looked at the three men and said. Shikaku nodded and said, obviously. Shuza smiled and put his hand on his chest. The Akamichi clan is fully behind you, Hokage-sama. We will do everything we can to protect Naruto. Inoichi sighed and said, of course the Yamanaka clan will help you, Hokage-sama. Naruto is the son of two of my best friends, and I would rather die than let Danzo influence him. Not to mention that he's going to be your future son-in-law, Shikaku whispered. Sarutobi smiled and nodded. Good, I'm glad we're now on the same page. The other three men also nodded. Naruto grew up with the ANBU and doesn't have much experience in the real world, either professionally or personally. I'll count on the three of you to help him grow up. He's a genin now and will have his freedom. Please watch out for him and help him in any way you can. He'll need his uncles with him. Inoichi saluted and said, Hokage-sama will be with him every step of the way. Shikaku and Chuza nodded and said, no one will hurt Naruto. The Sandaime nodded, and his desk didn't feel as tight. That's great. The three men smiled and nodded their heads. The Hokage looked at Inoichi and said, moving on. Now, Inoichi, remember to let me know the next time Ino-chan gets sick. Inoichi groaned and laughed again as he said, I've been thinking about the possibility of medical fuinjutsu. I've been thinking about the possibility of using medical fuinjutsu. Jiraiya raised one eyebrow and looked down at his godson. What do you think about it? I think combining the principles of fuinjutsu with medical techniques could really help the village. Naruto was walking with his godfather and thinking as he held onto a water balloon and looked ahead at the road. The hardest thing about medical ninjutsu is that almost no one in the village can even do it, let alone do it well. There aren't enough medical ninja in Konoha in general, so we need to find a way around it. So what do you think? Jiraiya asked with a smile. The SH Senjutsu is easy to copy with Fuinjutsu. As far as I know, it doesn't need a specific chakra type, and the hand signs aren't too complicated. The hardest part is controlling the chakra exactly. Jiraiya nodded. I can easily get around the chakra control by adjusting the chakra pathways through the seals. Only the right amount of chakra would pass through the seal array, which would then copy the technique. Have you really tried to make this tag? Jiraiya's eyes got bigger. I've already made a lot. Naruto tapped his storage seal on his forearm and opened a stack of tags. This is what I brought with me, he said, handing the stack to Jiraiya, who was stunned. This is the latest prototype. It's a two-sided tag. One side is the healing tag, which is where you should channel your chakra. Once enough chakra passes through the first side, the tag will start to use the healing chakra of the Shusenjutsu. The second side is the side that touches the wound, and it's a simple chakra expansion seal. It will expand the healing chakra into a 10-inch ring. Does this work? Shouted Jiraiya. Have you tried it? I haven't tried it myself, but Ino-chan scraped her knee last week. I used it on her wound, which was very small, but it worked. Her wound closed in a few seconds with no scarring at all. He laughed at the thought of his flower princess. What is it about this girl and her great ideas? Jiraiya looked at the tag for a moment before turning to Naruto and asking, have you shown this to the old man? Not yet, Naruto said, shaking his head. Before I show Jai-chan, I want to learn more complicated forms of medical ninjutsu. This one is too easy and simple. If I want to argue for medical fuinjutsu, I need to talk about something more advanced and hard. Naruto, this is already crazy. The Sannin turned to face the boy, both of them still walking along the road. Do you have any idea how many lives this will save? This will be like each team having a medical ninja. In this case, every ninja on the team would know how to use medical ninjutsu. Jiraiya was getting louder. Why didn't you show us this earlier? Do you know what it will mean for Tsunade if you do this? This would blow her mind. That's why I'm showing you now, Naruto said. I want to get some tips from Tsunade-sama. Since she is the best medical ninja in the world, she must have something to say. For example, I want to add a function to the tag that makes it clean. With Tsunade-sama's help, the tag could even have antidotes to known poisons sealed into it. And I bet I could make different points on the tag for the user to choose which antidote to give. Naruto jumped up and down and said, something that will allow the side touching the wound to disinfect the wound and bloodstream before closing the wound. Jiraiya's mouth dropped. The boy thought, this is interesting, as he looked up at the sky. I'll need more time with this. Why don't you use a bigger tag? Another Naruto behind the first one asked. No, that would make it less convenient, said another Naruto. Instead, we should make this into a scroll. It would give you more space to store the cures. We could even write out how to use the scroll and put it on the scroll itself for once. Let's just get the cleaning done first. The original Naruto looked back at his 24 clones, each holding a water balloon. Statistically, we'll need disinfectants much more than antidotes. A clone said, we'll also need to add the failsafe seal to this tag. Jai-chan won't want this to get out to the other villages. Naruto nodded and said, yep, that's for sure. Jiraiya looked at his Gotsen and his 24 copies and wondered what kind of geniuses Minato and Kushina were. Minato had been creative, and Kushina was very good at Fuinjutsu, but neither of them had ever made something so useful so easily. This was the boy's third invention, and he was still coming up with new ideas. What would he come up with when he was older and had other things on his mind than his little girlfriend? You, Naruto, are the one. The child of prophecy, cried the Sannin. Huh? Naruto and his copies asked Jiji. What are you talking about? Jiraiya violently shook his head and said, nothing. Just keep going. He told his clones as he pushed the boy forward. You've got it going on. Naruto frowned and said, we can't talk anymore until we hear from Tsunade-sama. I know nothing about how medical ninjutsu is used in real life. All I know about it is what it says on paper. Then we should find her fast. Jiraiya smiled and put his pen and notebook away. I think we should stop walking and start running. We'll get to Kawa no Kuni before it gets dark. Naruto watched as his godfather sped away. Wait for me, he shouted. He and his clones all disappeared with a shunpo, closely following Jiraiya as they tried to pop their water balloons while running. Naruto thought the border crossing would be more formal, but it was just a road sign that said Hai no Kuni ended and Kawa no Kuni began. He had spread out his clones to try to sneak into the foreign country without being seen, but maybe he was overthinking it. There were no guard posts or any other kind of security. The boy even tried to use all of his senses to see if any Anbu units were watching them, but he couldn't find any. Jiraiya ruffled Naruto's hair and patted him on the head, saying, don't waste your energy, kid. We haven't had a fight with Kawa no Kuni in a long time, so there aren't usually any guards on the border, at least not on every stretch. From a security point of view, isn't this a flaw? Naruto asked. I mean, what's stopping the enemy from marching in? Even here, we don't have any outposts. Naruto, Hai no Kuni is very big. There are outposts around the town walls of the few border towns, but it's not possible to keep an eye on the whole border. If an invasion force is coming, we need to know about it before he gets to Konoha or the capital. Well, this is another problem I'll try to solve, Naruto said as he pursed his lips. There must be a better way to keep our borders safe. Well, then, Jiraiya said with a laugh, I'll leave that up to you. From a distance, Naruto could see that the country lived up to its name. Wide rivers, each as big as or bigger than Konoha's Naka River, ran as far as the eye could see. Rice paddies and crop fields lined the water banks, making use of every available piece of farmland. If they weren't in such a hurry, Naruto would have liked to look around more, but his godfather was running away, so he had to follow, zipping through the peaceful land. They passed some tea houses and travel inns, and even a restaurant with a big sign advertising their curry of life. But Jiraiya didn't even look at them. His godfather seemed to know exactly where they were going, and Naruto was curious to find out. As they sped along the road, the houses got closer together, and soon Naruto could see the shadow of a small town in the distance. It wasn't as big as Konoha, but it felt like they were back in civilization. The dirt road turned into a stone-paved path that led to a busy market filled with people. Jiraiya stopped on the roof of one of the taller buildings, and Naruto joined him there. They both looked down at the fun. Wow, what's happening? Naruto grinned and looked around. Some kind of festival. Let's find out by asking around. Jiraiya grinned and jumped to the ground, and Naruto followed him quickly. They quickly blended into the busy streets, and no one thought they were out of place. The boy watched as his godfather quickly walked up to a market stall, which seemed to be selling lanterns, and smiled at the seller. Good morning. Hello, Sannin, he said with joy. This is a big deal. What's happening? The woman of middle age smiled back and said, we're having a party. We are finally free of the horrible Kurisuke family. People around her cheered when they heard her loud statement, we're finally free. We've gotten back our gold mine, so we can finally go back to how things were. Who are the Kurisukes? As Naruto listened closely, Jiraiya asked, you mean the crime family of Kurisuke Reiga? The boy's eyes got big when he heard the name. It was one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist, which he knew from the Anbu bingo book. I did hear that he was causing trouble here, he said. Oh, it was terrible, the woman said, shaking her head. We asked so many people for help, but no one wanted to cross that horrible family. She then smiled brightly and said, that is, until our hero came to save us. The family Kurisuke had to leave in less than a day. That monster Reiga thought he was strong, but he was destroyed and thrown off a cliff. Really? Naruto's eyes got big. Who is this good guy? Before the woman could answer, Jiraiya patted him on the head and said, actually, Naruto, I need you to do something for me. He handed Naruto a coin purse and said, it looks like this festival will last a while, so we'll need to get a hotel room. Go find a nice hotel and get us a big room. Naruto tilted his head and said, what do you mean? Naruto nodded and said, okay, I'll go right now. Hurry up, and feel free to have some fun, go explore the festival. Jiraiya said with a smile. When I'm done, I'll come find you. Sure, said the boy, shrugging. See you soon, Gigi. Naruto found it easy to find a hotel, even one that looked very nice. He didn't feel any high chakra levels, so he stayed in the shadows and surveyed the area from the tall roofs. There were a lot of hotels to choose from, so he picked the tallest one. He wondered if most of the people at the festival were locals, since he had no trouble getting one of the better rooms. Naruto put his room key in his pocket and put Jiraiya's coin purse away. Even with the big room, he still had a lot of money left. He walked around the festival, looking at the stalls and the meats being roasted. He had heard of the fire festival in Konoha but had never been to one. Ino-chan had promised to take him to the next one, so he was a little sad to be here without her. Naruto sighed and kept looking around until he found his favorite words, ramen shop. The boy ran into the small stall with joy and jumped up on the high stool with a smile. It smelled great. Maybe not as good as Ikaraku back home, but it was still ramen. He smiled at the friendly middle-aged lady chef. Please, one large bowl of miso ramen. Right behind you. Then Naruto noticed that he wasn't alone in the small ramen shop. There was another person at the other end of the long bar table. It looked like it was a young woman, but he couldn't be sure because she had her head on her arms like she was sleeping. She had very pretty blonde hair, the same shade as Ino-chan's, tied into 2 ponytails. Naruto realized he was staring, so he turned away and waited patiently for his ramen. But then he heard her groan. He turned to see her move in her sleep, but then she groaned again, maybe in pain. She woke up and lifted her head from the table. She was very beautiful, almost ethereal. She couldn't have been older than her late teens or early 20s, but what caught his attention were her bloody and bruised knuckles. She sat up fully, and he got a strong blush. She had the biggest breasts the young boy had ever seen. He quickly turned away and shook his head, but he couldn't stop the thought that maybe Ino would grow up to have the same chest. The thought nearly destroyed his young mind, and his face burned. But the woman's loud, painful groan brought him back to the present. When he looked back at her, he saw that she was drinking a cup of sake. Her face was red, so he wondered how many cups she had already drunk. Excuse me, Ni-chan. Naruto walked up to the woman the way he would walk up to one of his angry sisters, with his head down and a shy glance up. Are you okay? He asked, moving one stool closer to her. She didn't look at him, she just groaned, my head is killing me, and rubbed his temples. Do you need assistance? Can I help you? He asked, slowly moving toward the stool next to hers. She said, I'm fine. Just give me a few minutes and I'll be fine. It's alright, he said with a grin, I can fix this in a flash. Naruto sat on his knees on the stool next to the woman, putting him at the same height as her. He then opened one of his healing tags and put it on her bruised knuckles. This won't hurt at all, he said with a smile. He sent his chakra into the seal and smiled as green chakra came out of it. He put another healing tag on his palm and sent his chakra through it. This one also glowed green chakra, but he held it in his hand. Ni-chan, this should also help with your headache. He looked up and saw the woman staring at him with her eyes wide open and not moving. He waved his hand in front of her face, but she didn't react. Maybe she was becoming delirious, but Naruto couldn't tell. Again, he wished they could find Tsunade-sama soon so he could learn more about healing. What is En Nawaki? He heard her say, excuse me, in a whisper. En Minato? She asked, blinking and rubbing her eyes. He couldn't understand her slurred words, but he smiled softly at her and said, Hi, Ni-chan. My name is Naruto. Don't worry, your head should start to feel better soon. The Sandaime Hokage had told Naruto many times that being careful is a good thing. It was one of the many things the old man would say over and over to the boy, as if he wanted him to remember it. So, Naruto had never forgotten to tell himself to be careful. When the boy started to feel sneaky and lazy, the Sandaime's words would come back to smack those ideas out of his head. When Naruto's brothers gave him a mile-long list of books to read, he was scared and felt like he had too much to do. But the old man's lessons helped. He read every book all the way through, even though they got boring and repetitive as he got closer to the end. A gentleman could only be described in so many ways, and Naruto had already read them all. The boy learned how to act around women, or how to be a gentleman, in so many words but not in so many ways. He did act like one when he helped a damsel in distress, but the books never said how hard it was on his mind. Please just stay still, Ni-chan. As a healer, he tried to stay calm as his hand hovered over the woman's head. His chakra was trying to heal her pain, but she seemed determined to look him in the eye. The woman was too pretty to look at, and her intense gaze made it hard to look at her, but it was hard to look away, too. She whispered, "Who are you?" as she tried to peek out from under his hand to look at him. "You're a Konoha shinobi," she said after seeing his Hidayate. "But you're so young. Are you here alone? Where is your sensei or leader?" My Jiji is looking around for his friend, Naruto managed to say, forcing himself to only look into the woman's eyes. "So, he let you go off on your own?" she asked, her face still red from the alcohol. "This place is dangerous. Those thugs could have taken you away a few days ago." "It's okay, Ni-chan. I may be young, but I'm a genin of Konoha. I'm stronger than I look." The woman got closer to him and pointed, almost poking him in the nose. "I'll have you know, little boy, that being a genin doesn't mean anything. You're way too young to be out here by yourself." She looked down and glared at the ground. When will they learn not to send children on missions? Naruto kept telling himself, be a gentleman. He was trying to help a damsel, and the last thing he should have done was look at her wrongly. However, she was leaning toward him and looking down, and her breasts were moving from side to side right in front of his trembling eyes. Why was her shirt so baggy? Was her dress coming apart? Naruto tried hard to keep talking, even though he could only look at the woman's head. "Are you a Kunoichi, Ni-chan? You seem to know a lot about team structures." He was proud of himself for not stuttering too much. "Where are you from?" She looked up at him again, studying every move he made. But even from his height, he could see her chest move when she moved quickly. Even though his cheeks hurt, she leaned in even closer. Before he could say anything, she pinched his burning cheeks with her fingers, which made them burn even more. He yelled, "Oh," and asked, "What are you doing?" The woman pulled at his cheeks and said, "You're still too squishy, little boy." She looked into his eyes, and he could see tears welling up in hers. "You should be at home playing with toys and friends. What are you doing all the way out here?" "No," she whimpered. "Little boys like you need to stay safe at home. Your family can't lose you." After he was done fixing her head, Naruto took his hand away and just looked at the woman. "Ni-chan, are you okay?" "Ni-chan, huh?" she whispered. "You look a little bit like my baby brother, especially with that Hidayate. You're even younger than he was when he became a genin." She lightly pinched his cheeks and laughed weakly. "You remind me a lot of another little boy I used to know," she said. "Both of them died way too young." He asked softly, "Was your brother a Konoha shinobi? Or are you a Konoha Kunoichi?" "I haven't been in a long time," she said with a weak voice and shaky eyes. "I was getting too old, and they kept sending out people who were too young." She gave him a small smile and pulled on his cheeks again before patting his head. "Like you little boy. I'll have you know that I'm pretty strong for my age," Naruto said with a frown. "But if you're a Konoha Kunoichi, what are you doing here? Are you on a mission right now, or are you a missing nin?" he asked, narrowing his eyes. The woman laughed and patted his head as she hiccuped. "Oh, are you going to take me back if I am?" She laughed and poured herself another drink. What a sight that would be for the people of Konoha. One of the Sannin being captured and taken back by a tiny genin. "Sannin?" Naruto's eyes got big. "My grandmother would roll in her grave," she said as she drank her drink. "But my grandfather would probably laugh in his." "Why, you're Senju Tsunade," Naruto said in a whisper. He leaned back a little and looked at her. "No, I'm not." "You look so." He remembered to be polite and said, "Why, you're still so young and pretty." "You're a little charmer," she said, patting his head and lightly flicking his forehead. "That's right, little boy. You're looking at one of the Sannin." She laughed and shook her head. "Sorry for the disappointment. People like to sing our praises, but in all honesty, none of us were ever that great." Her chakra flared briefly as if to answer his questions, and he felt a wave of power come from her. "We can kill most people, but we aren't the saints they teach you about at the academy." Naruto stood up and bowed. "It's an honor to meet you, Tsunade-sama." She laughed and said, "Don't bow down to me, kid. I'm not your boss." She took another drink and shivered from the rush. She smiled at him and said, "You're pretty good, boy. Your SH Senjutsu wasn't very strong or effective, but you did get rid of my headache." She looked at her hand and said, "This wound, too," as she rubbed her eyes. "When did you heal this one?" Naruto looked at the woman in amazement. With this seal tag," he said, pointing to the tag on the table. "I put it on your hand before I started healing your head. I'm better at healing physical wounds, so the tag will do. I put enough chakra into it to heal most surface flesh wounds." After a few tries, Tsunade was able to get the tag, which she held close to her obviously drunk eyes. Naruto watched as she tried to figure out what the tag meant. "I don't know how to use the SH Senjutsu. I just put one of those tags in my palm and used it to heal your headache." He rubbed the back of his head. "I actually didn't know if it would work or not. I've only thought about healing internal illnesses on paper." She looked a little more serious when she turned to look at him. "What did you say was your name again?" Naruto Uzumaki, this is Tsunade. Who are your parents? She asked, her eyes getting a little wider. He gave her a sad smile and said, my parents are dead, Tsunade-sama. She moved closer to him and looked into his eyes. But my father was Namikaze Minato and my mother was Uzumaki Kushina. He whispered, making sure no one could hear him. Tsunade's hands went back to his face, and she ran her thumbs gently over his cheeks. Her eyes got big, and she dropped down to his level and pulled him close. She ran her fingers through his messy hair and asked, you're alive. I can't believe I never looked. Don't you already know me, Tsunade-sama? As she mumbled, tears welling up again in her eyes. Yes, I do, at least I should have done it a lot sooner than now. Are you doing okay? I will be, she said. I will be. She sniffled and asked, how old are you now, Naruto-chan? Naruto was surprised by how quickly she changed her mind, but she made him smile. I'm 8 years old, but I'll be 9 next week. It's been almost 9 years already. Tsunade stroked his cheek with her knuckles and said, 9 years. Who are you? Tsunade-sama. I'm sorry, Kushina, she said in a whisper as she looked at the ground. I'm so sorry. Tsunade-sama, I can't understand what you're saying. She shook her head and said with a small smile, you look so much like your father. He laughed and rubbed the back of his head while saying, I hear that a lot. She held up the tag and asked, you made this? He nodded and said, yes, Tsunade-sama. When she looked at the tag, he went on. If I may be honest, Tsunade-sama, my job here is to find you, she told him. Hokage-sama really wants you to come back to Konoha. She looked at the seal for a moment and then said, Hokage-sama wants you to come back to Konoha. She asked, so he sent you to look for me? He said, that was sneaky of him. Huh? You're always smart, Sarutobi-sensei. Tsunade sighed and took another sip of his drink while still giving him a soft smile. Did he ask you to also show me this seal? No, Naruto said. Hokage-sama doesn't even know about this seal. I just made it, and I haven't made it perfect yet. I'm waiting until I have the final product before I show anything to Hokage-sama. Naruto stood tall and looked at the Sannin. I promise you, Tsunade-sama. Hokage-sama put me on this mission because he wanted me to see the outside world for the first time. He looked down a little and said, this is actually my first mission. He peeked up at her and said, I made this seal to help my best friend, that's it. She said in a calm voice, I believe you, and put her hands back on his cheeks. But two things can be true at the same time, little boy. Always remember that. She smiled at him and said, but no matter what, this is good work. When I was young, I tried Fuinjutsu to see if I had any of my grandmother's skills, but I don't understand most of what's written on this tag. This is a new sealing method I made, so you haven't seen anything like it before. Naruto pointed to his seal and said, the idea behind most of my seals is to copy the effects of hand signs. What you see on the tag is a seal that lets a fixed amount of chakra through very specific seal arrays that copy specific hand signs. The arrays on this tag copy the hand signs for the SH Senjutsu. Tsunade pulled away from the boy and sat back on her stool. She raised an eyebrow and asked, so you made a way to seal that can make hand signs look like they were molded. Hello, Mr. Tsunade. How did the old man react when you showed him? She asked with a laugh. The boy said with a smile, he was very happy. Then he bought me a lot of ramen. Tsunade laughed and said, you look like your father, but you act a lot like your mother. Naruto looked up at her and she ruffled his hair. She was crazy about salt ramen. Every time she came home from a mission, she'd drag Minato with her and make him pay for her salt ramen. Naruto smiled and sat down next to Tsunade. The poor boy followed her around like a puppy, just glad to see her happy. You knew my Ka-chan? He asked. Most people only talk about 2-chan. I haven't heard much about Ka-chan. Tsunade said, you don't know, but I was your mother's Jainin sensei. What? He asked in surprise. I didn't know. Why didn't anyone tell me? Tsunade chuckled. It made sense. Kushina was the only Uzumaki in the village and I was the only one with Uzumaki blood. Her fighting style also paired well with mine. If I had more time with her, I would have taught her my taijutsu style. She laughed, but your father would probably be even more scared of her. I always said that your father rediscovered the Hiraishin just so he could run away from your mother when she's mad. They shared a laugh, but neither of them could get away from each other because they were so in love even when they were kids. Naruto whispered with a laugh, that sounds nice, as he looked down at the ground. I like hearing about them, he said in a whisper. If only I got to meet them. They would have spoiled you rotten, Naruto-chan, Tsunade said with confidence. Kushina would have never let you become a genin so young. She pointed at him and said, most of all, she would have kept you safe at home until you reached the right age to graduate. Naruto smiled and said, I'm really stronger than I look, Tsunade-sama. Naruto-chan, you'll never be strong enough for a mother to not worry about you. Tsunade's chakra flared up again, and her cheeks stopped turning red right away. Her eyes seemed to be getting better, and she stopped hiccuping. She looked like she was very sober. Now, where is your team's leader? Naruto waited a moment before looking around. Gigi, he should be around here somewhere. He looked outside. He told me to get a hotel room for us, and he'll come find me later. She muttered, Gigi. Oh, Kami, don't tell me. Naruto felt a sudden gust of wind behind him and turned to see his godfather standing there, rubbing the back of his head with a big grin on his face. Oh, you're in this town. I knew it was you when I heard there was a trail of destruction across town with gold mines. Gigi. Jiraiya grabbed the boy by the shoulder and ruffled his hair, saying, Naruto, you little lucky charm. You found Tsunade before I did. I thought she'd be drunk in bars or gambling halls, but who knew she'd drink at ramen stands, too. Tsunade's lips twitched as he said, You're lucky I'm sober right now. If you had come a few seconds earlier, I would have hit you on the ground for being so loud. Naruto asked, What about a gold mine? The Katabami gold mine is just outside of this town. It's one of the biggest gold mines in or around Kuni. It was briefly run by the Kirisuke crime family. Some mission requests had been made, but I guess you took care of those people yourself, Kurosaki Reiga. Not a bad kill, considering how long you've been out of action. Naruto looked at Tsunade, who was still giving Jiraiya the cold shoulder. You're the hero these people are celebrating, Tsunade-sama. He looked up at her, and she turned to meet his eyes. You beat Kirisuke Reiga and all of his men by yourself. That's amazing. It was nothing, Naruto-chan. It took me less than 5 minutes to get rid of them all, Tsunade said with a smile and a ruffle of his hair. Jiraiya laughed and said, I see you two have become fast friends. He knelt down by Naruto and grabbed him by the shoulders. Naruto, this is surprising, right? This is Tsunade. He shook the boy and then turned him to face Tsunade. Isn't she beautiful? Thank whatever god is above us. She's still as beautiful and sexy as. Jiraiya choked as Tsunade punched him in the throat and said, Shut up, you old idiot. Can't you once in your goddamn life act your age? She's lying about her age, he groaned. She snarled, and don't you dare corrupt Naruto-chan. She pulled the boy to her side and hugged him. I can't believe Sarutobi-sensei let you drag a little boy along with you. You're the last person who should be taking care of a child, and not a dog. I'll have you know that I've taken care of a lot of children in my time. Jiraiya rubbed his throat, whining at the pain. I basically raised Minato as my own son. You're the one who is day drinking in front of a child. Oh, don't think you can fool me. I know you better than anyone. She recoiled back, a bit flustered, and I am Naruto's godfather. It's only fair that I look after him. We both know that if I had been in the village, Kushina would have made me her son's godmother, she said, pointing at her teammate. We also both know that Kushina would have never let you take her son out of the village alone. You'd probably use him to flirt with girls and pick up mothers. I would never, he shouted. I've taken Minato on hundreds of these trips, and I've never used him like that. Not for lack of trying on your part, I'm sure. Jiraiya pointed at Tsunade and said, Minato could have reached his fullest potential, but you just had to train Kushina to be as scary as possible. You made that poor boy obsessed with and afraid of her. Greatest potential? Asked Tsunade. You wanted Minato to sleep with every fangirl who came his way. If you had your way with him, he'd become the biggest man whore in the elemental nations. And he wasn't afraid of Kushina. He loved her and respected her above all else, like a true gentleman. Jiraiya groaned. He was a child when he fell in love with her. At that point, he hadn't even met any other pretty girls. I just wanted to make sure he was sure about how he felt about Kushina. It would be better for him to break up with her then than after they were married. Tsunade gave Jiraiya a dirty look and then looked down at Naruto, who looked very confused. Naruto-chan, don't ever ask your godfather for relationship advice. If you have feelings for any girls, come talk to me about them. Naruto looked at both of them and nodded. Don't ask Sarutobi-sensei either, because sometimes he can be just as perverted. No, don't ask her about anything. She gives the worst advice. The Sannin came close to bumping into each other and said, Give him back. I won't let you hurt Naruto the same way. Hinder him. Tsunade laughed. Naruto-chan showed me the healing seals he made. She grabbed the boy by the shoulder and said, It's clear he's interested in medical ninjutsu. I'll train him myself and make sure he doesn't hang out with any bad people. He's going to be a Fuinjutsu specialist. I'm way ahead of you in that area. Jiraiya jumped back and pointed at her. He's also one of the village's most promising young ninja. If he gets better at Fuinjutsu, he'll change Konoha and maybe even the whole world. He needs my help. You shouldn't have let Sarutobi-sensei let Naruto-chan become a genin so early in the first place, said Tsunade. I don't care how talented he is, he's still a child. We're not at war. Why can't you people let children be children? Because he's the strongest child we've seen in decades. Tsunade looked suspicious as Jiraiya said, He's miles ahead of anyone his age. Scratch that. He's stronger than every nin in the village. Naruto blushed a little as Tsunade looked shocked. If we don't count Naruto's lack of experience and only look at his skills, he could already be a Jonin. His lack of experience and immaturity are the only things holding him back. That's why he's a genin. He doesn't have much more to learn from books. He needs real-world experience. Tsunade's eyes got narrow as she asked, who has been training him all this time, and how? Naruto nodded as Tsunade looked at him and said, Sensei raised Naruto in the Anbu barracks. Don't worry, he wasn't forced to train or anything like that. Kakashi and Commander Ryu were there, and everyone in the barracks treats him like their little brother. Naruto smiled and nodded again. He had a very happy, loving childhood. His strength comes from his own hard work and talent. Naruto's hair was being softly combed by Tsunade's hand, which was on his head. If you want to know more, feel free to come back. I'm sure Sensei will let you read his whole report. Jiraiya laughed. I've read it, and there are things in there that you couldn't even imagine. Tsunade glared at him and bit her lip. The kid is very good at Fuinjutsu. The healing tag he showed you was good, but it doesn't even scratch the surface of what he's already made. Naruto-chan, she said in a sweet voice, will you show me your other seals? Jiraiya spoke up and said, Naruto, your seals are private and only the top people in Konoha's government are allowed to see them. Tsunade is not allowed to see them. He then looked at an angry Tsunade and said, but if you're willing to come back with us, you'll be reinstated as an elite Jonin, the head of Konoha's medical corps, and the head of the Senju clan. You scumbag, she said. Will you please come back with us, Tsunade-sama? Naruto asked as he looked up at Tsunade. When his eyes got big, she bit her lip and said, Naruto-chan. I'm not asking because of my mission, he said as the two Sannin listened. I want to finish my mission, but this is about more than that. He tugged on her shirt and said, Jai-chan is getting old. Her eyes got big. Naruto looked down. He hasn't said anything, but I can feel him getting weaker. I see him rubbing his knees and he winces when he stands up. I want to help him, but I can't. I know you can help him, Tsunade-sama. She gave his head a soft pat. He bit his lip and said, I'm afraid he'll die if he keeps going like this. I care about Sensei, too, Naruto-chan, Tsunade said, lowering her head. But I don't want to go back for a few reasons. Things will change, Haim. Jiraiya moved closer to Tsunade. They've already changed a lot. You'll read about it when you get back. But I wasn't kidding or exaggerating about Naruto's Fuinjutsu. They will change everything. With you back, you and Naruto can combine your skills and make new advances in medical ninjutsu like we've never seen before. He put his hand on her shoulder. Tsunade-sama, please. Take all the time you need, Jiraiya said with a smirk, but we'll keep following you until you answer. I'll work as hard as I can, Tsunade-sama, the boy said in a hurry. If you want me to, I'll focus on medical Fuinjutsu. I can help you make new seals for the hospital. Just come back to check on Jai-chan. Maybe we can come up with something to help his health. Tsunade looked down at Naruto and saw that he was pulling on her shirt and looking back at her. She whispered, fine, I'll go back with you. Really? Naruto's face lit up. She couldn't help but smile at him and say, yes, really. Jiraiya smiled and said, thank you, Haim. Tsunade got down on one knee and pulled Naruto close. We'll help Sensei get better, she said as she softly kissed him on the forehead and smiled at the cute way he was blushing. I make a promise. Naruto smiled and said, thank you, Tsunade-sama. Some loud cheering came from outside all of a sudden. The chants were getting louder, but it was hard to understand what they were saying because so many voices were overlapping each other. The owner of the ramen stand rushed out to see how busy it was. When the two Sannin and Naruto looked out, all they saw was a big group of people cheering and hooting behind one person. Naruto looked out from his lower position and saw a young woman running towards them while holding a small pig. She looked scared as she ran towards them. Tsunade-sama, she cried out in terror. Can we please leave now? You told everyone that Shizune killed Reiga, didn't you? Jiraiya sighed. Hey, it's good for her reputation. Tsunade shrugged. He's got quite a bounty on him, she said with a sigh, which makes up for the fact that the gold mine here is basically dry. You were going to take the gold mine all for yourself, right? Tsunade smiled and said, you really do know me well. Jiraiya sighed again and said, better than anyone, Haim, better than anyone. Naruto asked, what's going on? New mission, Naruto, Jiraiya told him, and Naruto stood up right away. Go help that woman get to safety. Bring her back to our hotel room and make sure you're not being watched. The boy nodded, and the sage walked over to Tsunade and said, we'll come meet you soon. We need to plan our trip back to Konoha. Tsunade said, actually, we'll need to make one quick stop before Konoha. I need to go to the capital, so we'll have to go there first, but then we'll go back to Konoha. Huh, the capital? Naruto was surprised. She'll have to explain later, Jiraiya said. Hurry up and take that girl back to your room. Hello, Mr. Jiraiya. Naruto disappeared in a golden haze, leaving Tsunade to glare at Jiraiya while he laughed. Did you really have to say it like that? Jiraiya just shrugged and said, what? I just told him to take Shizune back to the hotel. I didn't mean anything by it. Fine, Tsunade said as she flicked her hair back. But if Naruto-chan turns into a pervert one day and starts bringing a bunch of girls back to his room, I'll take it out on you. She smiled at him, seeing him shiver. When that happens, I'll beat you up for me and Kushina. Why, you can't blame me that Argotson is a man. Oh, yes I can, and I will. She cleared her throat and faced him. I'm coming back with you, but I'm not being reinstated on the active roster. I'll lead the hospital and maybe attend some clan meetings, but I'm going to be there for Naruto-chan. I'll be watching the people around him, so I better not find any perverted influences on him. If I see any little orange book stain my Naruto-chan's eyes, I'm going to neuter you. Jiraiya turned pale and dropped his jaw. Oh, I'll be watching the hot spring, too. If you look at me again, I'll kill you this time. As she walked away from the ramen stand, she winked at him and said, don't forget to pay for your Gotson. He ordered ramen and a lot of sake. Jiraiya felt a little bit of regret, but he smiled as he watched Tsunade walk away. Some things never change, he said as he followed her. I still hate to see her go, but I love to see her walk away.
I will continue the story in next part. Till then, we weave offline.